The Minnesota Vikings have a brand new quarterback that's being targeted in free agency, and fans are split on this to back up JJ McCarthy. We're going to be talking about who this is and what this means for the Minnesota Vikings as Ryan Tannehill is linked to the Vikings via free agency. We're going to be talking about all about that here in this video. Very quickly before we get into it, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. We know that 70% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed to the channel, so be sure to do so if you're looking for all of your Minnesota Vikings news. Without any further ado, Griffen, let's get into this one. Starting off here from a tweet from Jordan Schultz. Sources: the Vikings have had discussions with former Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill about a potential deal. Talks are ongoing, and nothing is imminent as of right now, sources tell NFL on Fox. Now, this is a very interesting one for a guy who took a season off last year, had kind of moved out of his role in Tennessee with, which was an interesting decision by that squad. We see how that ended up now, getting them the #1 overall pick. But Ryan Tannehill is a very interesting quarterback, a guy who's been around the league for, I believe, 11 years. Seems like he's been around a lot longer, but between the Dolphins and between the Titans, he's had quite a mix of, let's just call it mid-teams, and being able to put him in a mentorship role is something that he's had discussions about previously that we'll get into in a minute here, but he is definitely a quarterback on paper that seems like he would really help out JJ McCarthy's development, while also being that safety net as a backup on a team that is actually competent. So, Griffen, what do you think about Ryan Tannehill as a backup for the Vikings in this case, and also like a mentor for JJ McCarthy going for this season?
I think it'd be a solid move. I think this is one that we weren't expecting to see because we were looking at the list of the quarterbacks, and that was one that wasn't on the list because it was one that didn't play last season. So that was one that we didn't really have an idea of, okay, where does he fit as far as the other quarterbacks go? And I think he's someone who could fit very nicely into this Minnesota scheme as a veteran backup presence if he's ready to be a mentor. We're going to hop into the specifics of that in a second here. But if he is fully willing to do that, I think this is a great move for Minnesota and one worth going after because I don't think it'll break the bank necessarily. It's not going to be one that'll be super expensive or a guy that is necessarily expecting to start in this scenario. So I think with this part in particular, I think if he's ready to be a mentor for JJ McCarthy, he knows his role as a backup and is only coming in if JJ isn't fully ready to go week 1, or if JJ struggles, or if there's another injury, God forbid. That is what he's going to understand will be his role. If he's fully willing to do that, I think this is a great veteran presence to have in the locker room if he's fully ready to play ball.
Yeah, I feel like there's already a lot of people commenting as well about the past of what he had specifically said about being a mentor for, in this case, Malik Willis. And that's what we're going to get into here now. This is where a lot of speculation really came out, even from me, knowing that this is something that he's had almost an influence on in the past, his mentorship. And this clip has been circulating from Ryan Tannehill's comments about mentoring a young quarterback a few years ago, which was Malik Willis. The clip is, I'm not playing it here. I don't know if it's copyright. I don't think it is. But if it's on Twitter, it's kind of, when you search for Ryan Tannehill now, this is everything that's pretty much coming up. He says, I don't think it's my job to mentor him. And that's the Vikings fan page Twitter account asked, do you think it's still the same thoughts with the Vikings as a potential option for him? And I'm going to say this right now, no. I think this is a much different scenario. I believe this was 2021 when they had drafted Malik Willis with that pick. And back then, Ryan Tannehill was a first, a #1 quarterback in the league, for a specific team, not every team, but he was a very solid quarterback and coming off a pretty decent year. And then since then, obviously dropped off, came out of his starting spot, no team last year. But in the situation he was in, when asked about being mentor for a young quarterback, he was a starting quarterback. He was not looking to get it replaced. He wasn't looking to teach the guy to replace him. And obviously, it would be a bit different if things had kind of been, now with the Tennessee Titans. But we see how things played out. We saw where that went with the Titans, and now out of a job. So I do think it's a different scenario. I think now he acknowledges that he's not a starting quarterback, and obviously, if he's in discussions with the Minnesota Vikings, they know they're not going to be starting Ryan Tannehill. So I think in my mind, Ryan Tannehill has kind of put this to the past, now accepted that this will likely be his role with whatever team he ends up signing with, if any, of course. Still nothing is imminent, as Jordan Schultz says. But this is something very interesting to think about, knowing that he has said this in the past publicly, not even been, a leaked bit of audio or anything. He said this publicly in a press conference about Malik Willis and not mentoring him. So, Griffen, I want to know what you thought. I know you didn't see this just before the video, so kind of what's fresh on your mind. What do you think about this quote from Ryan Tannehill? How do you think that would affect his kind of opinion on JJ McCarthy, if at all, with the Minnesota Vikings here?
A little bit of pause where when we were talking about this initially before recording, I was like, cool, this is a really cool idea. I really like that for bringing him in as a veteran presence if he's ready to be a mentor. And then I saw that and I quickly went, oh, wait, hang on a second. But keeping in mind, this is when the Titans drafted Malik Willis almost Jordan Love style with Aaron Rodgers. Not to say Ryan Tannehill was Aaron Rodgers by any stretch of the imagination. I never really bought into the Ryan Tannehill hype per se. I always thought he was a one season wonder. He was with that one season in Tennessee where they got pretty far in the playoffs but couldn't get the job done. He was very much like an older kind of Sam Darnold, I thought. And so if they bring him in serving the same kind of role that Sam Darnold was supposed to serve and having JJ McCarthy fully ready, again, like I said earlier, if he's ready to be in that and understands what he's in, this was in a place where he was still a starting quarterback. He was still winning football games. He was still getting to the playoffs. He was still coming off of really solid seasons. But it's been a few seasons. The NFL isn't in the business of what have you done for me in the past. It's what have you done for me lately? And he hasn't done much lately. So he needs to understand, hey, Carson Wentz, he was an MVP candidate at one point, and look where he's at now. He has to understand that's where I'm at right now in my career. You look at what Sam Darnold's done. You look at what Daniel Jones is going to be doing in Indy. It's not that kind of situation for him now, but at least it's somewhat of a safety valve where it's not a complete liability and you're not having to throw Nick Mullins in there. Not saying Nick Mullins is bad by any stretch of imagination, but I think we saw where we were a little unstable when he had to fill in for that quarterback carousel that we had 2 seasons ago. We're trying to avoid that kind of happening again. So at least Ryan Tannehill, he didn't play last season, so at least he's going to be fully fresh and healthy.
Yeah, I like what you said as well about Ryan Tannehill not being really any superstar at any point in his career. He had some great seasons, and, I was almost thinking to myself as well, the team he had wasn't great, but he had Derrick Henry, he had A.J. Brown. That Tennessee team had some pretty good weapons, and still wasn't really able to convert that into a consistent, good quarterback scheme type player. And when you're looking at his contracts throughout those years, he was also taking up quite a chunk of money. It's not horrible, but it's also, for what he was for the Titans, not the greatest. So it would be a much lower contract than this. I would say well below $10 million, which would be a very feasible backup. But this is just something I wanted to say. Keep in mind, especially where he is looking to still come back to the NFL, and these were his most recent contracts. And if he is to sign as a backup, he better not be getting this money, and will not be getting this money if I have anything to do with it. At that point, there's nothing that the Vikings could do to give him that much money. But when it comes down to the PFF grades as well, I wanted to pull these up as well because it really just goes to show he was an incredibly mid quarterback. He never had any extremely amazing seasons. He never had any extremely bad ones per se. He's definitely had some okay, some bad, some good, but he's been pretty, straight line across the board for this, in the middle of all the quarterback rankings, and on the bottom there, I know the numbers are small, like underneath interceptions, but the interceptions in his most recent season were not great, but even in his season stats, still really comes down to the middle of it and everything for the amount of games he's played. So, going last off, 4 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, not great, but the most recent rendition of the Tennessee Titans was not good. So we have to think about that as well. But overall, I don't think it's a bad idea as long as we're looking at this quote here being completely changed. If he has a different mindset now, I love the idea. As you mentioned, Griffen, as well, I think it's a great idea if this is not the case. But if he still has that mindset, hey, I'm not mentoring any young quarterbacks. I want to be a starter still. Sorry, Ryan, that's out the window. There's no point in you coming back to the NFL if you think you're going to be a starter. But Griffen, do you have anything else before we finish this one off? Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think he's out to lunch if he thinks that he's still worthy of a starting quarterback thing. And looking at those contracts that he's been given, it almost kind of reminds me of Kirk Cousins, because I read a report that was saying that, oh, if Minnesota brings back Cousins, that would be crazy. They're not going to bring in a $27.5 million backup. And when looking at that, it almost looks like he pulled off the same kind of Shanghai heist that Kirk Cousins was doing on Minnesota with those big high paid contracts. With, yes, looking at them now, they're not super high, but at the time, those were big paying contracts. The Titans were fooled by that one flash in the pan season that he had, where he kind of was able to prove, hey, maybe I wasn't so bad in Miami because of the system I was in, the weapons that I lack thereof that I had there. And now when he comes here and has all those weapons in Tennessee, they thought, okay, this is something different. This isn't the quarterback he was in Miami, isn't the quarterback he is in Tennessee. Well, they found out in about 2 seasons later that he is who he is. To quote Dennis Green, Ryan Tannehill was who he thought he was. And then now he's coming to Minnesota, it would seem. However, if his mentality has changed, I do really like that. But it would be basically bringing in a Kirk Cousins 0.5 almost in a sense, but a lot older and a little less good. So I don't see entirely the point of making him a starter. But again, if he's brought in just to back up McCarthy, be a mentor, teach him some of the veteran ropes a bit, the ones that Sam Darnold couldn't, that would be very valuable. But if he's not kick rocks, on to the next one.
Yeah, I completely agree. And James Winston has also been signed recently too, so it does seem like right now, this coming out a few days after, actually a day after, that the Vikings are going to try and get something done quick to get these veteran quarterbacks under lock to help out JJ McCarthy. So let us know what you think in the comments below about Ryan Tannehill. I'm expecting some mixed opinions. Obviously, it was not great last going off, or really the past couple of years, but certainly has been around the NFL and knows a lot about the game, which is something that is not also easy to come by, I guess we can say. So let us know what you think in the comments below. That's all we got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. But we're signing out. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.